thanks for the introduction, and I'm really excited to be here again. And the next session, we're going to be talking about the rising tide of digital health, addressing new risks in a connected world. And I'm very happy to be joined to moderate the session with Cassidy Szarnicki, who is the go-to-market lead for digital health and life sciences for Vouch. And Vouch is a leader in digital health and life sciences insurance. And before we jump into the topic, though, which is going to be about the considerations that startups should be thinking about as it relates to risks and what they can do to mitigate them, like insurance options, I'm going to hand it over to Cassidy to introduce herself in a little more detail and also talk a little bit more specifically about Vouch. So welcome, Cassidy.
Thank you, Amy. I'm super excited to be here and be having this conversation with you all. I'm Cassidy. I lead digital health and life sciences at Vouch. We've pioneered the go-to business insurance for venture-backed companies from pre-seed all the way up to pre-IPO. We have over 4,500 clients and also offer 10 proprietary coverages and have become the leading insurer for many of the top VCs portfolio companies.
That's great. And I think it's a really important and interesting area of need when we're thinking about the startups, because I think at times we don't realize that there are risks involved, obviously, but are there how can you mitigate those risks? What exposures do you have? And what can you do to offset those things? So from your perspective, what risks and exposures are you seeing as we're seeing the rapid rise and dynamic changes in digital health?
Yeah, there's a ton of risk right now in digital health. Patient information and communications are all being done virtually. And so companies still have this duty to ensure the security of that data. So we're seeing in this new era of digital health, there's an increased risk of cyber attacks. There's new exposures around personal injury, especially as it relates to the new integration of AI that does open up companies to greater risk and liability.
Yeah, and I think we all probably have experienced over time the notification that, oh, there's been a security breach, whether it's through a healthcare orientation or financial services or whatever, which is very scary. Can you give some examples of those instances and what some claim examples are?
Yeah, of course. I'll start with personal injury. So let's say, maybe you have a mental health condition or you're just looking for mental health support. There's so many teledoc companies these days. So let's say you go on Google, you find one and they say, hey, we can guarantee we'll match you with a provider or psychiatrist this very same day with the type of care that you need. So you sign up, maybe you fill out an application. It might even have an AI integration of recommending the type of care that you need to support you. You pay a subscription fee. And let's say several days go by and you still don't get matched. Or let's say you do get matched that very same day, but it's not to a provider that actually specializes in the care that you're looking for. So in that instance, a patient or a customer could actually claim that this either prolonged or either induced further emotional suffering. That would fall under what would be deemed personal injury. There could even be a claim there around false advertising. And so this is typically excluded in most insurance policies, but at Vouch, we actually include it in our digital health endorsement. Another claim example I could think about is around AI, right? So we're seeing this huge rise of AI scribes, AI recommendations in a patient's clinical care journey. And let's talk about worst case scenario, right? It gives a wrong recommendation for that patient, or it scribes the wrong information that it's being told. So in that instance, that could lead to a variety of disastrous outcomes for a patient. On most standard E&O policies today, they actually do not cover losses by AI products, services, or algorithms. So you do have significantly greater risk and liability if you have any type of integration with AI.
That's really interesting. Those examples are great because I think that we're not always thinking about these different aspects and the fact that you're exposed, there's risk there, but you can potentially mitigate that with insurance. So, as a startup, when should companies be thinking about getting insurance?
Yeah, companies should start thinking about getting insurance as soon as they have any assets and liabilities they want to protect. Other inflection points could be just after you've raised any capital, you're getting ready to launch a new product, you have your first customer partner, or even your first dollar. For later stage and growth stage companies that are scaling very rapidly, your risks tend to open up very, very quickly. So we actually offer a complementary coverage analysis that will help more complex companies identify where these areas of risk are.
That's great. And in generally speaking, big picture, how can digital health companies mitigate these types of risks so that obviously the insurance is going to be really important, but what steps can they take to mitigate any sort of course of action or something along those lines?
Yeah, there's a lot of new technologies in this space that affect how a patient is being treated, right? So from AI note taking to clinical decision support tools, these are all integrated into a patient's clinical journey. I can think about how many of us have probably received notification that we've had a data breach, right? And our information has been leaked. And so I even think about United Health Group most recently that had that massive cyber attack where their patient was released on the dark web. It cost them over $860 million to resolve that. So, I think about even other primary care companies like One Medical or TIA that are at significantly greater risk of a cyber attack. So things that you can do to mitigate this would be, number one, having robust security practices. Number two would be obtaining the right insurance. And number three would definitely be, trying to be as regulatory compliant as possible. Vouch does offer two first of its kind coverages that would help digital health companies mitigate these risks. And the first one is our digital health endorsement. It covers bodily and personal injury, as well as levels of coverage around defense costs associated with wrongful acts and false advertising. This is typically excluded in 99% of any other insurance policy out there. And then our AI insurance was rolled out earlier this year. And it's the first of its kind. It covers any losses caused by AI products, services, algorithms. It even covers bias and discrimination, as well as levels of coverage around defense costs. So, we all want to ensure that patients and customers are protected in this new world of digital health. And really the best thing that you can do is to obtain the proper insurance for your company and implement the best practices to conduct business in a better way.
I think that's great. And I think obviously the work that Vouch does, you're working directly with the companies to help them, better, make sure that they're protected from the risks and things like that. But ultimately, it really is about how do we ensure that we are protecting the privacy and the data of the customers, the patients. So at the end of the day, it's really about the patient. And I love that sort of patient-centric sort of foundation of the work that you're doing. So congratulations on that. But thank you for this conversation. I think you've really raised some important topics that people might not necessarily be thinking of. And even when we think about AI and the fact, obviously everybody's talking about AI now, but there are risks associated with it. And how can you protect yourself and your customers? So insurances like the ones that Vouch is offering, can play a great role. So that's wonderful. Any last comments you have before we sign off?
Just thank you again, Amy, for the interview. And if you have any questions and you want to know more about Vouch or really understand what risks your business might have, feel free to reach out to me via email or directly on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Cassidy. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks for being here.